Fucking own, bitch!
As almost all of you probably know by now, over the weekend, conservative journalist Ngo was attacked and robbed by a gang of masked left-wing CNN viewers who call themselves Antifa. Before we get started, I just wanted to quickly show you a new t-shirt designed by my amazing wife. Since milkshaking is so popular on the left, let's show them that two can play at this game. If you want to support this channel and you want to get something back for it, check out my Teespring store for this and other great designs. You can find the link in the description or in the pinned comment. Thank you. Antifa are a fascist, Nazi-esque gang who identify as anti-fascists because while they look and they sound and they act like Nazis, they report feeling like they're in the bodies of anti-fascists. Ngo is an editor for Quillette.com and a contributor for the Wall Street Journal who is known for covering Antifa violence. While he was covering the counter-protest, a group of these scumbags started attacking him and throwing fast-drying concrete at him. As he retreated, they chased him down, beat him up, and robbed him of his GoPro camera. The video is quite disturbing to watch, and it just goes to show that this violent left-wing terrorist group is escalating their violence, and they're doing it with the support of the Portland mayor and the mass media. Predictably, the media's coverage of this story has been very scant, and what little bit they are covering it is absurdly Orwellian. Just do a quick search for Ngo, and what you're going to find is a bunch of alternative network media covering it, but all the mainstream networks are either just downplaying it or aren't covering it at all. I'm talking internet stories here. I'm not even talking about the network coverage, which has been non-existent. For example, this ABC News headline reads, "Right-wing protesters clash with anti-fascists as Portland march gets violent." The obvious implication here is that the alleged right-wing groups are fascists and those opposing them are the anti-fascists. How can anybody trust media that describes these people as being anti-fascists? How exactly does wearing masks and destroying property and using violence to shut down free speech or beating up gay Asian journalists fit into anti-fascism? It's especially baffling that the media plays along with this farce, considering that even the Department of Homeland Security classifies Antifa as a domestic terrorist group. The partisan spin continues in the very first paragraph of this article. Quote, "Competing marchers clashed on Saturday with right-wing protesters and anti-fascist groups fighting on the streets of Portland, Oregon. Portland Police Department said there were 3 people arrested after the day of violence." What 3? Who knows? The ABC article has purposely left that ambiguous because it was Antifa people that got arrested. Even later in the article where it says who was arrested and their names, it doesn't mention anything about these people being part of Antifa. The article makes only a passing mention of the attack on journalist Andy Ngo, saying, Andy Ngo, a conservative journalist for the outlet Quillette, said that he was among those assaulted at the march. Ngo bills himself on Twitter account as hated by Antifa. Yeah, he's on video being attacked, and yes, he's in the hospital with serious injuries, but ABC reports it as if it's just his baseless claim that he was attacked. Surprisingly, CNN's Brian Stelter actually brought it up and actually condemned the violence, giving it about 2 minutes at the end of his show.
One more important story that you need to know about before we take a break. This is a protest that turned violent against a member of the media in Portland, Oregon this weekend. Conservative journalist Andy Ngo was out there covering rival protests on Saturday. Antifa on one side, right-wing figures on the other side. But as the demonstrations clashed, protesters, it appears to be Antifa protesters, then attacked Ngo. He's been out there in the past. He's been covering protests in Portland for quite some time. His critics say he's there to cause trouble, but that's unacceptable. The idea that he would be attacked, that he would be bloodied in that way, unacceptable, period. And it's important that everyone make that clear.
Oh, would you look at that?
First off, I just want you to notice that he labels one side right-wing, but fails to label the other side left-wing. That's pretty typical in the media. Don't get me wrong, it's good that Stelter said this, and it's good that he criticized Antifa on his Twitter, but how much coverage is this really getting in the media? Stelter literally only gave it a few seconds at the end of his show, which is pretty weak considering that CNN has promoted and defended Antifa in the past. Both Don Lemon and Chris Cuomo have expressed support for this group because clearly they're anti-fascist and anybody that they're beating up must be a fascist. CNN host Kamau Bell actually did a puff piece on one of these Antifa chuds who bragged and brandished weapons that she claims she used to attack fascists.
Oh. I love that these are,
I know. I like that. They're
Can I put it on time on? I want to ask.
I usually have a couple of those on me just in case.
Just in case.
Now, imagine just for a minute that these thugs are Trump supporters and they're beating up a left-wing reporter. It would no doubt be a wall-to-wall, relentless drumbeat that would be used for years to come by the media and Democrats against conservatives and their political opposition. Just look at how they fear-mongered for weeks on end about Trump rallies chanting CNN sucks. They claim that it was only a matter of time before Trump supporters began attacking journalists, and Acosta even wrote a book about this subject. Instead, what we're actually seeing are people in the media running cover for Antifa attacking a journalist, like media talking head Ali Pacazio, who essentially just said that Ngo brought it on himself by recording Antifa, or as she calls it, antagonizing. Andy Ngo is someone who antagonizes those he knows will react in a disproportionate way, and this exact outcome was inevitable. Everyone knew it. Those who assaulted him, however, are the ones at fault here. She dug in even further later, saying, when shit like this is used to paint an entire movement or side as wholly violent, be sure to pat the aggressor here on the back. That's right, she just labeled the journalist that got beat to a bloody pulp the aggressor. Nathan Bernard of Bernard Media also ran cover for the left-wing terrorist group, saying, quote, after relentlessly baiting and harassing Antifa, far-right provocateur Andy Ngo finally got his wish of being milkshaked. Far-right simpletons like Tim Pool will milk all of this victim story for the next week at least. Andy Ngo as a far-right provocateur and Tim Pool as a far-right simpleton? Does this guy even know who these people are? One is a gay Asian journalist, the other is a liberal Democrat journalist. It really just proves how far-right has just come to mean anything that stands in the opposition to or even just questions the far-left agenda. Another so-called journalist from the New York Times named Charlie Warzel chimed in saying, quote, this whole event should be seen through the context of what it is, an information war. A number of people who go to these protests are looking for fights or to document them. They're all live streaming. When tensions boil over, it's meant to be ammunition for a culture war. You know how I'm always talking about projection? I think what he accidentally did here was just admit what we already know, that these fake journalists are constantly looking for ammunition to use against their political rivals or anyone not in lockstep with their ideology. The bottom line here is that our so-called free press is proving itself to truly be an enemy of the people by supporting and protecting a violent communist terrorist group. It's up to all of us to expose Antifa and their media for the corrupt, violent thugs that they are. You can help me to continue this fight by supporting me on Patreon, Subscribestar, or on PayPal. You can find the links in the description or the pinned comment. Thanks.